Ever since I made my videos on my master plan for living and traveling and owning property around the world, and ever since I made my video on why I keep homes empty when I'm not there, people have had a lot of questions about all the potential problems that you could face by doing this. I made a list and we're going to cover them all in this video. Hi, I'm Andrew Henderson, and I've been talking to you about my trifecta strategy for a couple years now. I've been talking to you about the idea of owning bases as both a strategy of basically parking your money in real estate, great diversification strategy for putting money around the world, but also just as a strategy for being a successful person who has places to go to. It's, for me, a lot easier to come to Tbilisi or to Montenegro or Kuala Lumpur or Mexico City or wherever and just say, I have a place that's ready for me. I have it decorated the way I want. I have the furniture I want. I have the teas that I want. My clothes are in the closet. I'm not schlepping stuff around. And so a lot of you have had questions about some of the potential pitfalls. One of the questions that we got asked was, how do you handle this for estate planning? You own properties in different countries around the world. And I'll tell you, this is something that we're working on right now. For me, as kind of client number one with my research team and I and some of our experts around the world. So if you're interested more in this topic of estate planning, leave a comment below and we'll consider making more content on this. This can potentially be an issue. I heard a story of someone who bought a property in Latin America and it took them 10 years in court, of their heirs, 10 years in court to actually get the property handed over to them because it's just so much bureaucracy. My answer to that is be careful where you buy. In real estate, they say the money is made when you buy. The conditions are important when you buy. And if you're buying in a highly bureaucratic place where this is an issue, you either want to set up an appropriate structure, like putting it in a company, or doing whatever it takes. And so being educated when you're buying property is an important part of estate planning. I have bought places, I think everything that I own are in places where it's actually pretty easy to handle. But we're definitely doing more research on that as we continue to expand and to invest in new places. So know what you're getting into going in. Number two is security and break-ins. Someone asked, have you had any break-ins? No, I've never had any break-ins. In fact, the funny thing is the only time I had a break-in in properties, I had 2 rental properties in the United States. A couple years ago, I bought these properties in the US as an investment / as a test, because I had some non-US people asking me, are there any opportunities in the US? And I got turned on to some ideas, and so I decided to be, again, client number one. I tested it myself, and it all worked for a while until the neighborhood fell apart, and yes, I did have a break-in, and it was not good. Ended up losing a few bucks on one of those houses. But everywhere else in the world, I have not. So how do I handle that? Someone asked, do I have only condos? I do generally prefer condos, apartments, etc. I'm not a big house guy. I don't need a huge yard. I think there will be times in the future where I will build out those kinds of properties. I'm looking at doing a build out right now in a more rural area, kind of a recreational property, to where I just wouldn't be worried. But no, I haven't had any issues with break-ins, nor do I think there's any reason really to have break-ins. Everything's pretty locked down, everything's pretty secure. The stuff that I need, the stuff that's like essential to my daily life, my phone, my computer, that comes with me, of course, my wallet, anything else is locked away. So I haven't had break-ins. I don't think it'd be a huge issue. I have heard people, again, I think it's important, having the right infrastructure, thinking about that when you go in. So for example, I'm working on a deal right now in Colombia, and I'm looking at, I probably don't want to be on the 2nd floor, right? I'm thinking 3rd, 4th floor, you've got a bit more protection there. So I think there's some common sense things you can do. I've never had that problem. Someone else asked about squatters. I think this is an interesting question. Again, know what you're getting into. Squatters. In some countries, it's impossible to get rid of squatters. In other countries, it's not that difficult to get rid of squatters. And so part of where you're treated best is if you're owning real estate, whether as a landlord or for your own use, figuring out, where the laws are favorable. And so I haven't had this issue, and I don't think that the places where I'm at, it's part of the the culture. Other places it might be part of the culture, but I think having decent security is important. I'm not a big fan of the necessarily of the big security guys at the desk and checking everybody in and signing. I don't know that that necessarily makes it any better, but I've just never had that issue, and it's one thing that we'll definitely keep in mind as we grow the portfolio, but it's never been an issue. General management. This is an important one. Paying bills, taxes, insurance, HOA fees, etc. Again, you got to keep it easy. One reason why I would be hesitant to buy properties in certain countries is because they don't make it easy. I had a friend who lived in part of Nicaragua, and he said, my electric bill comes delivered under a rock every month in my front yard. Obviously, that's not very efficient. What I try and do is create an infrastructure. So I recently went through with one of my team members and created data sheets for each property. And I had the same information on each property. If it didn't apply, I deleted it. So, Tbilisi, address, what I paid for it, when I bought it, rental status, do I have it for rent or not? Usually I don't. Very few of the properties would be available for rent. But I also started listing, electric bill, account number, who it is, how it's paid, when it's due. And I put a link to the website. So if it's, Tallahassee, in Georgia, click on Tallahassee, go to Tallahassee's website. I have the password saved on the computer. I can log into Tallahassee. Now in Georgia in particular, everything is just set up with my bank. So it just gets auto-debited from my account. In Malaysia, a lot of stuff gets auto-debited from a credit card. I can just go on and make sure it was paid, or they send me a receipt every month for internet, for my mobile phone. I just keep it open all year, even when I'm not there. Other bills do need to be paid. So in Malaysia, I make sure on my data sheet, how do you pay the electric company? You got to go online and you got to, do it through JamPay. And I'll just usually pay a bunch of money up front, so I don't have to worry about it for 3 or 4 months. For property taxes, I have someone handling that. Again, we created a kind of a procedure to handle that. Each time I get a house, I put together kind of a welcome guide that I could not only give to you if you're my friend and staying in the house. Here's how the washing machine works. Here's what to do when you come. Here's what to do when you go. Kind of a checklist of things to do. When you arrive, make sure that you start turning things on. Make sure you push the button for the hot water heater. When you leave, turn the hot water heater off. Take the trash out. Close the door. Put the cockroach guard down. Whatever it is. So I think that's really been helpful for me. I will say insurance in some countries is difficult to buy. In Montenegro, for example, it's difficult. You've got to fight them if you want to insure more than like 30,000 euros in value. I mean, they're not really built for nice homes. So, sometimes I'll just get a minimal insurance policy, seeing that in a lot of places where I'm buying, the value is in the land. Other times I'll get, better insurance policies. HOA fees generally can be paid very easily through online banking. And in many cases, I don't have HOA fees. So again, something that you want to keep in mind before you buy. Cleaning and preparing properties for arrival. How do you handle that? That is also the SOPs. And in most countries, I either have a property manager who I work with and as part of Nomad Capitalist and also personally, and so they'll help me with it. In Georgia, I'll have family. In Malaysia, I have friends who I help out with stuff, and they've offered to prepare everything. So I think ultimately, if you want to be really aggressive about it, you would have like the Hillary Clinton advance team. You'd have the advance team, flying to the places before you and cleaning everything up, spraying for bugs, washing sheets and cleaning everything up and making sure everything works and all of that, fixing any light bulbs. I have kind of a watered down version of that where I have various people who, again, mostly property managers or developers, but occasionally, friends who just like to help or family. And what I've created is standard operating procedures. Here's what to do when you come. And equally important for me, because sometimes you're in a rush and sometimes you get a bit too relaxed about the nomad capitalist lifestyle. And, I have a checklist of things that I need to do when I'm leaving to make sure I don't leave the trash behind or make sure I don't leave something turned on that shouldn't be turned on or something plugged that should be unplugged. So I think having checklists is important. It's a little geeky, but at some point, anytime you have scale, you have to do that, right? I mean, it's like when I first started in business, I'd have 1 appointment a day. I would just remember it. When I started having 12 appointments a day, I realized I can't remember this anymore. Like I'm not that smart. And I had to finally get in a calendar, right? And it's the same thing here. If you've got one house, you probably just remember the electric, you're there all the time. But if you're doing this, you need SOPs that you can give to other people and that you can use yourself. Someone asked about utility contracts, auto bill pay, I mentioned that. Again, one thing I would mention is easy countries, right? Georgia, great country for real estate. Someone said, I really love Georgia. And I love Georgia because it's easy to operate on this kind of macro level, where you just put all your bills in online, just sucks them out. Just sucks them out. And then the last thing was, how do you handle the expense? You actually handle the expense by just paying the bills, but I will tell you this. People have asked, how do you, this must be really expensive to keep all these places empty, and that's what led people to say, oh, it's suboptimal to leave places empty. And what I explained, you can watch the video, Why I Leave Houses Empty. To me, it's suboptimal to return to problems, to have to hear problems when I'm traveling, to have to be stressed, to have things not where they were left. But I also buy places, and I'm very conscious of this, in areas where the carrying costs aren't that high. Some of the countries I'm in, there are no property taxes. Other countries, it's hundreds of dollars a year. I don't have that many HOA fees. Utility costs, for example, in Tbilisi, when I'm not here, it's like $11 a month to keep the utilities going. Plus, I keep the internet on, so $35 a month to keep the 100 meg internet cranking when I'm not here, so it's ready when I return. So $35 a month isn't really a big cost. What really hit me in the face recently is when I went and said, just did one of my little weekend relaxation sessions, and just went online, was looking for property in Montreal. I was helping someone potentially moving to Montreal. And I saw, oh, this condo is not such a bad deal. It's just cheaper than I expected. Oh, $28,000 a year HOA. Whoa, $7,000 a year school tax. I started to remember, like if you live in the US or Canada or Western countries, the carrying costs are pretty darn high. The good news for me is I don't want to live in the US or Canada, so I can afford to live in places that in my opinion are better, and I can live there for pennies on the dollar. So I think that's another part of, that factors into maintaining empty homes. If I had a place in New York City that cost $50,000 a year just before you even put the key in the door, I wouldn't do that, I guess, until I could just afford to pay $50,000 and feel good about that for whatever amount of time I spent there. So if you have other questions about maintaining real estate around the world, I'd love for you to leave a comment. I'd love to continue addressing this because I really think it's a great way to live. If you're a successful person, having places that you just walk in the door, the coffee machine's the same, clothes in the closet, you're just ready to go. I think it's a great lifestyle hack for the Nomad Capitalist entrepreneur. Leave your comments below. What questions do you have? Hi, I'm Andrew Henderson from Nomad Capitalist. I wrote this book, which you can find on Amazon, to distill a lot of the stuff we talk about in these videos and a lot of the stuff I've learned over the last decade plus traveling all around the world, teaching you about how to legally reduce your taxes, build your personal freedom, and create wealth faster. Definitely get a copy of this book if you want to learn more. Now, if you want to watch more videos, make sure you subscribe to our channel and make sure you click the notifications bell so you never miss one of our new videos with more tips on how to go where you're treated best. And if you're already a 6- or 7-figure entrepreneur and you'd like to put these strategies in place for yourself, go to nomadcapitalist.com and learn about how I can help you.